Hi, good evening, everyone. Take your seats. Come on, sit down. Causing trouble. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to London Accessibility Meetup 32, Christmas one. If you want to follow the meetup on Twitter and YouTube, you can find us at Ali London on Twitter. We also use the hashtag Ali London as well. And we have a nice YouTube URL now. So we are youtube.com/c/accessibility London. So check us out. There's lots of good videos on there. Tonight's event is live streamed onto YouTube as well. My name's Andy Ronksley. I'm a freelance digital accessibility specialist. You can find me on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. So if you want to find out a bit more about what I do, or if you want to ask me any questions, I can help you with anything related to accessibility. More than happy to give you some of my time. One announcement today. In the break, there are going to be a couple of people from Sainsbury's doing some filming. So Sainsbury's Tech have a lot of exciting positions available at the minute. Design, UX, development. So there's a few people here. Chris and Tom, you guys in the audience somewhere? No, so I think they're going to be, well, maybe they're here, I don't know. So during the break, they're going to be shooting a bit of footage and looking to interview people. So if there's anyone who isn't comfortable to be in the background of any shots, please let me know when we break, and we'll make sure that you're not part of that. But they're going to put together a couple of minute video about the meetup and how Sainsbury's is involved in it. So yeah, we're happy to support them because Sainsbury's are very generous in letting us use this venue every month. Okay, if you want to ask questions today, there's two ways you can do it. We'll have microphones in the audience for Q&A, or if you prefer to ask a question via text, you can go into slido.com, and the event code for today is AL32. Enter that, it'll take you to the room that we've got set up for tonight, and you can ask questions, and they'll come through to myself and the other organisers, and then we can ask them out for you. Quick hands up exercise to see who's in the room today. So anyone first event tonight? It's about half the room. Yeah, woo. Welcome. So it's good to see new people come in. So I hope you enjoy tonight. I hope it's the first of many. Anybody that is working in accessibility full time? Yeah, it's probably about 2/3 of the room. Any content designers? About 10. Any visual designers? About 5. Developers? Healthy number. Maybe here for James's talk. It's probably about 20. What would you call yourself, Chrissy?
Researcher.
Sorry?
Inclusive researcher.
Yeah, okay, inclusive researcher. About 5 or 6. Yeah, okay, so a good mix of people. Who's working for a corporate company? About 15, 20 charities. About 10. Any government, third sectors? 5 or so. Okay. So a good mix of people. Hope you enjoy having a chat in the breaks. Yeah. Okay, so talks for tonight. Not yet, you're very keen. It's good, I like it. So we've slotted in a 5-minute talk today from Gurdeep Sangha. So Gurdeep is here to tell us about Project Impactive. So we're doing a little 5-minute talk tonight, and then Gurdeep's going to join us in the new year to do a full talk about this. It's really exciting stuff. Yeah, 5-minute preview, and then we'll see him in the new year. Second talk today is Christine and Chrissy. So it's a collaboration talk, open inclusion and scope. We're going to be talking about the value of inclusive design from the Big Hack program. So some hot off the press research. Now we'll have a break. So grab a drink, get some more pizza. And then when we come back after the break, another thing we squeezed in tonight is we have some books to give away. So Smashing Magazine, some of you may have heard of. They've very generously given us a few copies of Hayden Pickering's new book. So anyone that's RSVP today, and anyone who says hello on the live stream is going to have the name entered into a draw, so we're going to pick out some names. Actually, this reminds me, I also have some freebies from Christine, so we have some notepads and pens as well, so if you want to ask a question at the end of their talk, then there's the opportunity to get a free notepad. Talk after the break is James Hall from Hex Productions, who has his own fan club. So James is going to be talking about the power of HTML structure and ARIA labels. After that, if you want to, we're going to go to the pub. So the pub is a couple of minute walk away. It's a fairly quiet pub. We can have a conversation. There's no requirement to drink alcohol. I don't drink alcohol, so you can have a cranberry juice with me, have a chat. A couple of venue things before we get cracking. Toilets are back near the lifts where you came in. Litter, the venue's always really clean when we come in, so you're allowed to bring your drinks in. Please don't leave your litter in the venue when you leave. And then there's no planned fire drills today, so if the alarm goes off, we do need to leave. The fire exits are just before the lifts where we came in. Thank you to all of our sponsors. Without these companies, the event wouldn't be happening in the form that it does today. So Sainsbury's let us use the venue and help us with staff, AV staff, catering staff. Barclays sponsored the meetup for the whole year. So the money that Barclays gave us allows us to buy pizzas and provide live captions like this, and also pay people to run our live stream. So it makes the event a lot more professional, means a lot more people can enjoy it that are not in London as well. MyClearText provides our amazing captions. So the captions you see here are produced by Orla, who's a human, not a piece of software. So please give her a round of applause. And then recording the events, we have Peter from Meetup Video at the back. He's on his own today. But Peter runs a really great company that can record all your events, help you run live streams. So please check out his website. Please try and support him. Okay, so Gurdeep, I'm going to hand over to you. Switch over to your slides. Mario, could we get Gurdeep's mic turned up, please?
Hello? Yes, it works.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Gurdeep Sangha, and I'm the president of Project Impactive. Project Impactive is a student-led initiative that does two main streams. The first one is we make customized products for disabled clients. So we have an engineering team, we sit down with our clients, and we discuss how we can make a device to help them in their day-to-day life. The second is we conduct product development with our partners. So we'll have our engineering teams, they'll be given a brief, they'll create a prototype, and then our partners will mass manufacture it and sell it in a non-profit manner. So I'll tell you a little bit about our past projects. This is our engineer, we had a A-level photography student who got into an accident, which meant she couldn't hold a camera in a static position. So we made a simple brace that put the weight of the camera on her spine and not on her arms. Another project we worked on is a cup holder. So we had a client that has cystic fibrosis, which means she had very low grip strength. So she could drink water in her kitchen, but she couldn't carry the glass to her living room. So it's a really simple design. And we 3D printed this cup holder and we gave it to her. Something else is, this is our other client who is bedridden. And we made a device that allowed him to use a tablet. So this just produces a force in the upward direction. So he only has to move his arm in this direction and provide a force in the XY plane. And this device allows him to call his family during their lunch breaks and have more accessibility. So that was last year where we mainly functioned on creating devices for our clients. Now this is part of our product development and mass manufacture. So we're creating, this is one of our devices, we're creating a Xbox One controller that is one-handed. So it acts kind of like a mouse and you can slide it around. This is really important because gaming is a really great way for children to actually mentally develop and have that sort of social interactions with their friends. One of our other current projects, this is also a CAD file, is a cup holder that attaches to wheelchairs, and it has different sizes you can put the cups in, and it's a universal cup holder, so it can go into any wheelchair. So I'll tell you a little bit about Project Impactive. It was founded alongside the UCL Volunteering Services in 2017, and we became active in 2018. We only had 2 projects in our first year, but we won the Newcomer of the Year Award and Project of the Year Award by the UCL Volunteering Services. The next year, we stepped it up to 6 projects, and we won the Project of the Year Award again. We also won the Princess Diana Award, and we got nominated for the Mayor of London Volunteering Awards. This year, we have 60+ volunteers. We have 16 projects this year, and we're looking to expand into both Imperial and King's, and talks are going on. What makes us different to other charities is that 100% of our funding goes towards our projects. So because we're all students, or professors, or all volunteers, we don't have to pay for staff. And because we're uni students, we don't have to pay for cleaners and buildings. So that's a really unique feature of us. We're 100% volunteers, and 100% of our team are currently from UCL, but in the coming months, there will be others from King's and Imperial. If you want to keep up to date with what we do, you can check us out on Facebook, or you can even email us if you can think of a potential collaboration. In the future, we're actually looking to collaborate with the NHS. We have talks going on with Google as well. We also have some talks going on there. So if you can think of any ideas of how we can make things happen and join hands, please do email me. I'll be back probably in February to give a longer presentation on what our products are, and probably bring some of the prototypes we're working on and have cool videos of giving them to clients and all of these type of stuff. So you will see me shortly. Thank you so much.
Good, thank you so much. Really excited to have you back in the new year. You're going to be around at the break?
Yes, I will.
Okay, so if you have any questions for Gurdeep, find him in the break. I'll get your slides up, and then you're good. Who wants this?
It's a clicker.
It is a clicker, yes. Right here, yeah. The world's smallest microphone.
Hi, everyone. I work in tech, but I'm actually terrible with technology, so ironic. I'm Chrissy Barrick. I work for Scope, and I'm running a digital influencing program called The Big Hack, and that seeks to disrupt the tech industry so they make their products and services more accessible.
Hi, I'm Christine. I'm Christine Hemphill from Open Inclusion. We're an inclusive research and design organisation, and collaborated with Chrissy this year on the Big Hack project.
Yeah, so we did some research with Open Inclusion, had some really, really interesting findings, and hoping to share them all over the UK so that people can go away and make use of them. So, a bit about the Big Hack. This programme aims to explore the business case for inclusive design. You're going to hear a lot about that tonight. Introduce the benefits of inclusive design and the costs of inaccessible design to businesses and society, and demystify the implementation of inclusive design. There might be a few of you here who are new to accessibility. You might be facing the new regulations, which say that you have to have an accessible website if you're in the public sector by September 2020, in which case it might be feeling a bit overwhelming, the whole concept. But what we're doing in the Big Hack is we're really breaking down accessibility into kind of bite-sized pieces and saying, you know, a bit every day, and kind of thinking about it carefully and getting a bit of passion for it makes it much more achievable. And we'll offer ongoing resources and practical support to businesses and designers. So, why should we practice inclusive design? Well, because a lot of people benefit from it, essentially. So this was actually unravelled in our recent research, which is disability prevalence across the UK. And this shows that on the map there's darker areas where there's higher than 25%. So northeast, 25% of people there are disabled. Northwest, 23. Yorkshire and the Humber, 23. East Midlands, 22. Andrew, where's Andrew? Is this circulated, the presentation afterwards? Okay, that would be great because the presentation is fully accessible, so anyone who wants the content on the graphs can access that via the presentation.
It's probably worth just noting one other figure there, which is London is 13%. And actually when people think about what we see and what we hear, it's like, is it really that high across the UK? If you're from London, we're sitting in the lowest disability zone in the UK. So what we're seeing and feeling is not representative of the country.
I might go and stand across the other side. Is that crazy? Okay, right. Okay. Right, so, and overall in the UK, 1 in 5 people are disabled. That's 13.3 million. And our research also showed some new figures, which is that's 11 million households, and that makes that 40% of households in the UK have at least one disabled person. And actually, that household is going to be affected by that person having inaccessible experiences as well. So, the purple pound. So I'll let Christine talk through this slide from the research point of view.
So the purple pound was originally introduced as a concept in 2012 when some work was done from the FRS, which is one of the ONS, too many acronyms, the Office of National Statistic major surveys, that said of the households where there's at least one person with a disability, how much income and disposable income, so their total income less rental income, do they have? And that's essentially the disposable income where disability is part of the context of decision making. That started at 212 billion, so we still hear this number battered around by some people. It's actually now, as of this latest research, very, very hot off the press. It's about 3 or 4 weeks old, 274 billion. So that's 15% of the total discretionary spend across the UK.
Such a huge number, and what we actually hear a lot is that that number is too big to digest.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's a powerful number. That's a huge amount of disposable income that people are able to spend. But, however, for one business whose turnaround is perhaps, 4 million a year, it just kind of, the concept is kind of just sort of disappears amongst that.
To put it in context, it's equivalent to the whole financial services sector in the UK.
So what we did with our research in the Big Hack is we tried to break that down a bit, so it made a bit more sense kind of industry by industry what people were missing out on.
So essentially there were 3 research questions that we worked with the Scope team on. The first one was, how do disabled people and the households that they're within spend their income? So what's the difference in spend patterns? What's the role of inclusive design in either pushing or pulling those spend patterns? So if that's what we see in terms of spend, why? Is that a push or a pull that's moving people towards or away from certain categories? And then how are the changes to demographics, particularly to 2025 and 2030, likely to influence those patterns in the future? We did 2 pieces of research for this. The first one was a piece of secondary analysis, and we worked with our partners at Trajectory for this, where we took a lot of national data sets, particularly starting with the overall consumer data set, so total money that goes through tills, the actual consumer spend across the UK, broke that down by households, and then broke that down by households with different disability categories and different head of household gender, age and income, so that we now know the difference between a non-disabled household at £700 a week or more and a household with a vision impairment or a household with a hearing impairment by category. So if you think about the granularity of that data, that gives us a huge resource to now mine for quite a long time in the future as we try and unpick some of the what's driving people towards or away from various spend categories. So the first one is the quantitative data. This was basically taking 4 different data sets. So it is a little bit complex. My friends from Trajectory aren't here, but you've got the consumer data, that's the top line, total amount that goes through tills. It's just the consumer spend across the UK by every subcategory. Then by households, those households were broken down by different disabilities and those different needs by using Understanding Society, FRS, as those categorisation, where those questions are asked specifically of very large groups of people across the UK. We broke it down by the various categories, and then we compared these categories of both disabled versus non-disabled households of the same characteristics. And then what was really interesting is you could also look at one category versus another. So you find some categories that one of the categories of impairment might be above non-disabled and another category is below, and you can start to see that there's some quite interesting stuff for inclusive design to play into and understand. Chrissy mentioned before that 40% of households have someone with a disability in them. That's this long number here, but essentially 11 million people in the purple, of course, for households with a disability. 60% don't. Of that 40%, you can see these various categories here that add up to a lot more than 40% because people have more than one category, certainly in households too where there might be more than one person, where mobility needs 25%, dexterity 14%, mental health needs 11%, hearing 9%, memory 8%, and vision 7%. And the definition is the EA definition of disability, so a long-term health need or disability that impacts people's day-to-day lives for 12 months or more. This was one of the most interesting things we took away, and sorry, it's a really complex data, but I'll talk you through it. Essentially, this is the 2025 and 2030 forecasts of what's happening to households and the characteristics of households, just taking age-related prevalence into account. So not taking anything else that could happen between here and 2025 and Google solving the world for disability so that we actually have a whole category that disappears. It's just taking age-related prevalence today. What we see is overall the UK population is forecast to grow by 5% or 5.2% to 2025 and 8.6% to 2030. For households without a disability, that's 3.8% and 7.1%. For households with a disability, that growth is double. 8% through to 2025 and 14% versus 7% through to 2030. So if you think that this is an issue now, and if you think that this is something that might be an unmet market need now or an undermet market need, the growth rate of households with a disability is double that of households without. This is the spend pattern. So once we got all this data and we said, categorised it into some larger categories, we said, where are people spending their money? And it's always interesting when you get surprises. You know, that's what research is for. If we knew the answers, intuition would be enough. Let me tell you, I got surprised here. I didn't know food and beverages would be number one. I thought, I don't know, transport or something else, rent. But food and beverages makes up just under a quarter of the spend for households with a disability. And then personal transport, 14.5%. So all the rest of the categories, 10%. Rent is then coming in at 9%. And then going down to public transport, a very poor cousin at 3.8%. The interesting thing is, how does that relate to households without a disability? So essentially the same characteristics, but no disability in that household. And that tells us where inclusive design is succeeding or failing various groups. So personal transport, households with a disability are spending 33% more on this category. Interestingly, public transport, almost exactly the inverse. Public transport is not inclusive. It is pushing people out and therefore they're spending more on cars. Personal care products, because people are having to look after themselves and buy more expensive medical devices and products and health-related needs, 23% up. Education, 65% down. Public transport we've mentioned, entertainment 25% down, and hotels and accommodation 20% down. The thing about education that I find so powerful when I see that statistic is education, of course, is an enabler as a category. And without education, people don't have the same opportunity in terms of their workplace opportunities. So this is a critical category that this highlighted. So, oh, you were going to talk to this one? Oh, or do you want me to?
I don't mind, you go for it.
This was the survey that we ran, which basically all of that gave us the who spends what. Where's the actual money flowing? But it didn't tell us why. It didn't explain to us why. So we then did a survey which we co-designed with Scope, which was all about people's buying habits and really trying to ask people, why do you spend in the categories you do? Is your access need actually driving you to spend more in this category or less in this category than you think you might otherwise? And understand whether there's some push and pull factors. We had 234 people, all adults, all with disabilities from our panel. It was very representative of the national disability population. You'll see in the next one where it wasn't. I'm quite happy to show that. And it was really to unpick that, why the spend patterns are as they are. So the green here is our survey coverage. So this is our 234 people split across as a percent. The purple here is the UK representation. If you had 100% of people with disabilities, what that breakdown would be. So essentially we overrepresented in visual and hearing needs, and we pretty well matched all the others very closely. And the main reason we overrepresented in visual and hearing is we had so many comorbidities where they had visual or hearing needs plus something else.
So it was a beautifully designed survey and very well thought through, and it really unpicked the results of the data that we captured. And just as a starting point, when we asked people, do you think businesses are losing out by not having an inclusive customer offer, 75% of respondents said yes, businesses are losing out. They saw themselves as customers, they have money to spend, so businesses are missing out on their custom. And we've laced the rest of the deck with quotes from people where they gave more detail to their answer, which I think are really powerful, so I'm gonna read these out. There's a poor experience every week due to inaccessibility, be it a badly designed website, inaccessible screen capture, or dodgy taxi driver. And people told us a lot about offline experiences as well as online. I would like to spend more than I currently do, but I can't because it's such a laborious task. If websites, apps and stores were more accessible, then I'd spend more because I'd have no restrictions. The purple pound is worth a lot, but businesses that don't seem to realise this and put the effort in to make their products and make their products and websites accessible in order to benefit. I don't know if it's in this deck, but we know that 98% of the most popular websites do not meet the minimum accessibility standards, and that's quite shocking. So 2% meet the minimum standards for accessibility. So for a lot of people, this is day to day, this is life. Trying to navigate a website and just finding barrier after barrier often makes people just give up. So when you have problems buying goods or services on a website or app, or using an in-store machine, what do? We found respondents were able to answer more than one question about things that they've done, what would they do, and 50% said they would choose not to buy the item. So that's a lot of businesses who are missing out on people who want to buy something and then because of the barriers have decided not to. 48% found an alternative provider to buy the item, and 32% asked someone in the household to complete the purchase for them.
I think this is really powerful because essentially if you think about if you get it wrong, there's a really big cost. 50% of your customers who have an access need that you've just failed will walk away. But actually, this 48% is very powerful too, because this is the carrot that goes with it, that if you decide to be ahead of the market and actually be more accessible than the others in your industry, people will go to you because they're really frustrated with those that just failed them. So this is as much an opportunity as it is a risk for people.
I don't know if anyone's read the book Hooked. Very popular amongst the tech industry. So if you become a loyal customer online with a certain company, it's very, very challenging for you to then change to a new business because we really become hooked on our habits with engaging with certain businesses when they initially work for us. So Here's another quote that we got. I really, really wanted to buy tickets to go to the football for a big match. The timeout clock on the website kept finishing before I did. It was too hard. I ended up not going. And we hear this so many times, like something as simple as a timeout clock. You know, for someone who's perhaps using assistive technology, it might take a bit longer to fill in that form. And if the timeout clock just keeps timing out, then it's just going to be like, oh, I give up. And that's giving up on a real life experience there as well. Here's another one. I quite like this one. I mean, it's an awful experience, but this is so powerful. I wanted to order an item from, let's call them Sports Indirect. But their website wasn't fully accessible with my screen reader. The buttons on the website weren't labelled properly, so I therefore decided to try shopping through their app. But I found the app to be even worse. I couldn't even select a category this time, around to select my product. I had to then go to the store. So this person really wants to buy this product, right? Like,
this is commitment.
Yeah. I had to then go to the store, which in itself was hassle as a blind person. But when I got there, I was told the product was out of stock and that I should order it online. I tried explaining the issues I had with the website and app, but the staff in store said there was nothing they could do about it. So, I mean, this is a terrible customer experience. Really awful. And actually, when the built environment is such a nightmare to navigate, buying stuff online can be really game-changing. It can make a huge difference for you. So this is really dreadful. They've lost out, 3 times over there.
And this is one of the things, I used to do mountain guiding, and we'd say that the biggest tragedies always happen when you had a chain reaction of multiple things going wrong. And this is a classic chain where you would have had a bad customer experience if you had failed once. Failing twice, you've given them a very bad experience. Failing 3 times, and they're being used as an example in here tonight.
Not naming any names. Education. So this is really powerful, and kind of the more I think about this and explore this, and I've talked to journalists recently about this, the more we think kind of it could be the heart of a lot of barriers that disabled people experience. Just kind of talking to disabled people in focus groups, you hear about their experiences in the education system, and it's quite shocking. Like the lack of thought to making things accessible for people and meaning that they can have the same experience as their non-disabled counterparts is really quite surprising in this day and age. And our results in the data have really demonstrated that. So, I mean, it's something that as Scope we really want to unpick further, and kind of really keen to explore more so that we can campaign to change it. So households with disabled people spend 65% less than non-disabled counterparts on education. 33% would spend more on education but are prevented in doing so because of accessibility issues. Spending on education includes school fees and trips, college and university fees, conferences. Although all categories of impairments are impacted negatively relative to households without any disabilities, hearing 73% less and mental health 84% less are the access needs that are most impacted. If I was assured the Learning Resources course was truly accessible, I would be more likely to partake in extra education. There is very little by way of accessible cultural events in education. If they were more accessible, then I'd spend more.
I think one of the really interesting things here is I'm a bit of a data geek, so this is where you start to see real power in data, because Chrissy and I both know from engaging quite regularly with the disability communities that education is a massive barrier from primary school right through to people in the workforce getting additional education. This gives us some numbers around it, and what I particularly like is the numbers that it gives us in the sub-communities gives us a really good feel for the greatest failures and the greatest design flaws that are in the education system. So we know that people with hearing loss and people with mental health challenges are the ones most excluded from education today. And that's where the data's given us that insight.
Public transport, a huge culprit. and really a nightmare. We do a lot of campaigning around public transport. In Scope, we did a big campaign about 3 months ago, which was really driven by disabled people. We crowdsourced their responses on their experiences with public transport, and then we went to transport companies to tell them where they were failing people. And again, the data tells the same story. Households with disabled people spend 31% less per household on average than their counterparts. 22% specifically noted in the survey that they wanted to spend more on public transport, but are prevented from doing so because of accessibility issues. Train transport was the most exclusionary category of spend. It caused the most people, the most barriers. I don't know if anyone's experienced public transport with a disabled person, but actually, it can be quite traumatic. And when you have such a horrible experience trying to catch a train, actually, it's going to put you off catching a train again. And that's the thing, people underestimate how that one experience can really put you off doing it again, because of the fear that that might happen again. Train transport was the most exclusionary category of spend. It caused the most people the most barriers. 51% of respondents found train travel provided a poor in-person experience, highest category for in-person. Buses and coaches provided poor experiences to 36% of respondents, and for underground, this was 32%. 38% of respondents found train travel provided a poor digital experience. This is the second highest category for digital. So this problem is running through the entire experience of the service. If you are interested in finding out more about public transport and people's experiences there, then do check out the information we have on Scope, because we've got quite a lot of information on there. In the Big Hack, we're going to be unravelling more about the online experience as well, so keep an eye out for that. My worst experiences with accessibility have been with public transport, which is the most important thing to someone with a disability. I would be happiest to spend more money on it if it was more accessible.
Just one quick thing to add to the public transport. Besides the fact that it's pushing people to private, Chrissy talked about the traumatic nature of the experience. That's also energy lost. That's also emotional and mental, energy that you've put on the way to getting to whatever you were doing. So that impacts people's work, it impacts people's education, it impacts people's social life. It has that knock-on effect emotionally that goes beyond just the financial impact from it. Yeah, absolutely. So this is the inverse, the private transport. This is actually, again, it's like I was noting before, there's always a positive. These things are a yin and yang. There's nearly always a positive that goes with the negative. People with disabilities are spending a lot more on private transport. Generally 98% more, so not a little more, double. So 98% more than their non-disabled households. So this is very different, obviously, from the public transport. Because people are limited in using public transport, they're needing to spend more both on buying cars, and in fact, when you look at the running car costs, they're also much higher. So it's not that people just have these cars, they're running them much higher as well, because those were split categories. The households where someone has a hearing impairment spend double, so 100% more than the equivalent households with no impairments. So if you think about this, and households with a vision impairment, it was like 90% more. How many car manufacturers today are saying, wow, we earn double from a household with a disability than we do with a household without? We should be investing heavily in inclusive design to get that market in. Autonomous vehicles are coming. That's going to allow... Some of this is because people are driving their own cars. Some of this is because people are passengers in cars. How many people are designing the passenger interfaces, the entertainment systems, the navigational systems, so that the person who's driving can drive and the other person can be controlling it with whatever access needs they've got. Also seating, controls, the wide range of needs, with much older people, an ageing population, getting in and out of cars is a particular difficulty, we know, for older people. It's also a particular difficulty for people with mobility or dexterity challenges. So who's designing for that today? And we're not seeing a lot of innovation there. This number tells us we should be. I've just said that.
Okay. Entertainment. So households with disabled people spend 25% less than counterparts on entertainment. Again, at Scope, we hear so much about how barriered the entertainment industry is. And this can range from watching Netflix to going to a festival. 67% want to spend more on entertainment, but are prevented on to doing so because of accessibility issues. This would equate to 224 million more spent each year on this category if they spend equivalent as a percent of their total income as their non-disabled counterparts. We'll be launching in April next year a big analysis and more detail around this entertainment section because we found there's a lot of information there and it's quite a clear call to action to the entertainment industry. I want to book wheelchair spaces for everything online. Cinema, theatre, train, taxis, everything. I want to be able to book online, easily, not on the phone, not via email over several weeks with a phone call later. I want all of it to be bookable online and easily. And when you're not living with a disability, it is very easy to book tickets online. And that's the thing, for someone who has access requirements, booking something online often means going through another layer. And now we're seeing that more and more organisations are taking contact details off of their websites because they say, oh, you can just book it all through the website. Well, no, actually, for people who have to tell you the access requirements, they need to phone up and they might need to email as well. So that's something to take into account. I would spend much more on entertainment if cinemas and theatres had more audio description on touch tours, if Amazon and Netflix had better info about where audio description was available. So we do also find that with these websites, information about accessibility can be buried quite deep down, so that can be quite a challenge to find. So Netflix, for example, do have a list of their content and the programs that are subtitled or do have audio description, but it's nigh impossible to find. So actually, if they could make it more easy to find, then someone could have a smoother experience on the website. Not to mention any names again. Keep doing that. Okay, so I'll let Christine talk through this slightly complex when you first look at it slide.
No problem. I mean, essentially, there is this market and it's an addressable market. Just think of it as any other set of segments that have unmet needs that are there waiting to be found. At the moment, people are going through online, they're going through phone, they're going through in-person and the built environment, and they're not necessarily getting these needs met. And there's basically two ways that they're exiting this today. Some of it, they're just going, it's too hard, I didn't get to my football match with my kid, I'm not going to pay for Netflix, or I'm not going to go and get that pair of shoes I wanted because it was too hard. And sometimes they're facing extra costs, or extra time, or extra energy, which are all other ways of saying cost, in order to get to the same outcome that someone without a disability would be able to get to more easily. So essentially, it's the addressable opportunity is making the online, the phone, or any other contact method that's provided, and the built environment and customer service layers that any brand is creating out there, taking each of those pieces, finding the barriers and friction in them, and removing them. So essentially, if that's all good, yep, got it, we want to do it now, we've moved on to the next bit. How do we do it then? Is this really hard? It's actually not as hard as people think. It is quite a mixed market. Let's not think this is one segment, that there's one fix. However, there's three pretty easy ways to start to address it. The first one is start with insight. And by asking people with different access needs, what's your experience of our brand across the built environment, across customer service and across digital, you can very quickly find the friction and the barriers within your own brand experience. That then gives you places to address and fix. There's also the designing for extremes, which is by understanding those needs that are very heavy users, very light users, people with access needs, people with occasional fluctuating needs or injuries. But all of those extremes, you're going to end up creating solutions and services that are fundamentally better to more people more of the time. That's more value. And therefore, that gives you a greater market impact. Then once you've designed for those extremes, that extending that to many is if you understand the needs, if you've designed to solve for those needs, you'll then find that actually by solving for those, you've created solutions that many people can appreciate and enjoy. For when they have those occasional needs of just not being able to hear because they're in a noisy environment, a quiet environment, a bright environment, a cracked screen, all those needs that we get.
Other business benefits. So you can tell who did these slides. It was me, because there's chips on them. So here are some accessibility takeaways. Christine actually changed the chips. I put them back in. I was like, no, I need chips at the end of a presentation. Right, so I think as we've kind of talked through, I mean, inclusive design is good for UX. If you design to good accessibility principles, your UX tends to improve because they are very good, rigorous design standards. Accessibility improves your SEO. Yes, it does. That's actually purple because it's a link. And if we're sharing this presentation afterwards, this will link you through to an article on the Big Hack website, which discusses why SEO improves your SEO, why accessibility improves your SEO. And as Christine mentioned, inclusive design is also good for people who are experiencing a temporary disability, and that might be because they're holding a baby, or they've lost their glasses, or they're in a loud environment, or they might be drunk. There is actually a website called istheuserisdrunk.com. Don't know if anyone's used it, but it's good for testing your website. So, like the filling of a decent pie, accessibility should never be added as an afterthought at the end. Bake it in from the beginning. Honestly, I implore you, it makes it so much easier if you begin with accessibility in mind, and it can be incredibly expensive to unpick a website and make it accessible. And we're seeing regulations come in September 2020, and hopefully we'll see further regulations if the government really starts to understand the economic advantage of inclusive design, accessible websites. There'll start to be some action around upholding the global minimum standard. This is from a great blog on gov.uk websites. One government team reported a case where it took 2 to 3 sprints to deal with accessibility issues defined in an audit at a cost of £50,000. So again, it can be really expensive to unpick things and make them accessible. And we're going to see an increased kind of pressure on making things accessible.
I have a particular experience I'm aware of where one organisation spent 20 times the budget of the initial quite small development on sorting it out once it was live, and they were challenged for it. So that was a 20x by not putting it in upfront.
And as I mentioned, 98% of the internet, well, it's actually kind of the most popular websites out there, failed to meet the minimum standards for accessibility. And I think one thing that we're really communicating through the programme that Scope are running, called The Big Hack, is actually it's okay if you don't have an accessible website. It's okay if you're not practicing accessibility, as long as you really try to start now. A lot of people don't even know what it is, and they don't really realise that actually people aren't able to use their website. They're just going about doing their job. So on thebighack.org, we've got loads and loads of articles that are really easy to consume and really easy to kind of understand how you can start to implement accessibility on a day-to-day basis and gradually make your website better and better. So we want people to feel like it's achievable, and it really can be done. And also, Scope Store is open. If you email the Big Hack at scope.org.uk, we're happy to help you out if you're trying to build accessibility into your design. So with the 98%, an inclusive website will win you many loyal customers. I mean, as we were talking about, if you're experiencing barriers trying to book a flight, consistently, and then there's one website in which you can book that flight, you can use that website every single time. So accessibility will gain you loyal customers. Inclusive design means asking people with specific needs about their experiences. This provides deeper insights that can present innovative solutions with very specific value in addition to wide mainstream appeal. Often we get but how do you do inclusive design? I often get that question at the end of a talk, and to be honest, I'm like, it's like the way you'd normally practice human-centered design, but add people who represent diversity. Just consult with people who are disabled as well as, you know, whoever else you're consulting with. Human-centered design is the thing. I'm sure we're all doing it. You just extend that pool of people that you're chatting to and you're working with and you're interviewing and you're running workshops with.
So a couple of things that you can change. They're not necessarily quick fixes or fast fixes, but this is where, as Chrissy said before, consistency and consistency in the right direction is the most important thing. It's a bit like getting fit, that if you do a little bit every day and if you focus on this, and particularly if you prioritise this around the actual known needs and friction of your organisation, you can get quite a long way quite rapidly. It's much better than having some big program that I'm going to go and get fit after New Year, and then a month later you're not doing anything for the other 11 months of the year. So besides the bits we say, the one thing I'd kind of caution over all of it is do it at a speed that you can continue it in an ongoing way. So in terms of the physical stuff, physical access, we do quite a lot of work in the physical access space. Some of the challenges we see very regularly: shop steps, wider aisles, accessible routes, lifts and wayfinding. So it's not all just physical needs, but actually wayfinding is a particularly interesting one with some really good options now to make things much more adaptive. The paying experience, just like a website in the physical environment, people go through, they pick up all the things they want, then they get to the checkout, and of course there's not a checkout now, there's the digital one, and it's not designed for people with access needs. There's no space underneath for a wheelchair to pull in so that you can reach it. The touchscreen's not designed for someone who's got a visual impairment. And if you've got a cognitive impairment, you might have lots of information coming at you, including some ads and some bits and lots of colours. So this is another part of the digital experience, and it needs to be designed with the same care and empathy of different access needs as any other digital experience. The store environment, noise levels, light levels and accessible facilities. When we work with our clients, we sometimes just do auditory assessments, and we just think about the sound in an environment. We go through it, you can actually record sound, and you think about sound design as part of the experience you're providing. And then you think about how that sound design impacts people who are very sensitive to sound or aren't receiving much sound, and are you creating the sort of experience that you're wanting? You can do the same with the visual environment. Is it very visually noisy? Have you got the right balance? So. And then facilities and special use spaces. Store support, customer service can save you from so much else. It's a bit like a safety net that can catch so much else that goes wrong. If you have all sorts of horrible things that stop people getting what they want to do, but you have a person with good intent, good customer centricity and good disability confidence, you can often save the customer experience. So make sure that you've got the right level of staff training and preferably some shopper guides. And accessible shopping sessions, events, marketing, allowing people to know when it's going to suit them if you've got special times that suit them better, and actually knowing that they're welcome. You know, putting out in the marketing and the messaging that actually there are people with disabilities in our society, and they're not kind of made as this one big flashy thing, oh, we've done a disability ad, aren't we good? But just as part of the ongoing marketing, that this is part of our community, therefore it's part of the community you're representing. Telephone. Obviously some specific challenges, so navigation can be very complex for some people, so less voice-operated navigation, the complicated menus, that many layers in to try and find anything can be complicated for any of us, let alone someone who's got additional challenges. Speaking too fast, I'm Australian, I've got to slow down, I speak quite fast. Speaking too fast, or repeating information, you know, knowing to repeat information. Did you get that? Can I, you know, would you like me to explain that? And maybe explaining it in a version 2, which is not exactly the same words, but the same concept coming from a different direction. Being careful about assumptions. So, you know, whether people can read. Are you looking at this on the website, or people with slower speech? So just understanding, don't assume that because someone's got slower speech that their mind's working slower. It might not be, it might just be slower speech. And creating accessible services, so particularly obviously for people with hearing impairments, the telephone is challenging. Preferably have an alternative for them, because they probably will prefer that to a text relay, but at least if anything's required on a call centre, that you provide text relay. And then allow people, again, allow your customer service staff to be customer service oriented. So give them the training, the skills and the capability and the appropriateness to divert from the script when it's appropriate. And then online, so the key focus kind of the big hack. There's so many things online, but here's just a few. Text, simplicity, clear language, fonts, colour contrasts that are easy for everyone to read and see. Navigation, making that clear and simple, making it work whether someone's tabbing through using keyboard-only access or switch controls. Larger buttons, so anyone with dexterity impairments or just walking through as they're trying to do it down the street, being knocked by people. And creating alternatives to drag and drop, which can be really challenging to certain assistive technologies and people with certain access needs like dexterity challenges or one-handedness. Images, creating alt text, so alternative text descriptions, and ones that if you're listening to the content and there's a picture that, you know, as you'll find if in this file, if you go through it, that if it's just a graphic image in the background, it doesn't even read it. You just note that as not requiring an alt text, and it'll just read over it, and having alt text that actually are meaningful when it's a meaningful element. CAPTCHA traps are a massive problem, a bit like that checkout when you've picked up all your things and you've got to the checkout and you're ready to go and you find the checkout. CAPTCHA is one of those, right at the end of experience. You're ready to buy the things and you've got this, you know, are you a human test, and actually a lot of humans are failing it. So create CAPTCHA that is human-centred, not human-prevented. Communication, captions, sign language, user assistance options. Just think about different communication styles, different communication options you can provide. And Chrissy mentioned timeouts before. They are an absolute, we hear about them all the time. They must have been mentioned 20 times in the survey. This causes a massive headache for so many people with or without disabilities.
Based on my experience and those of other disabled people I know, businesses lose out. I suspect they don't know to what extent. So, massive thank you for listening to us. Again, I've got things in purple there, which mean they're links. But if you go to bighack.org, you'll find all the stuff online, kind of hints and tips around inclusive design. We've got a fantastic blog on there from these guys at the back. And yeah, do check it out. And also, in the coming months, we're going to be uploading much more specific, kind of industry-specific analysis, so stuff around entertainment in April, and then along the way we do more on transport, etc. So do keep an eye out. Sign up to the newsletter, and we'll update you on when things are coming out and anything new on there. I don't know if we have time for questions.
I think we need to save the break if we can.
Okay. Okay. Orla needs a break, fair enough. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. And yeah, we'll be around in the break.
Yep,
so.
Please come and ask us anything about it.